All right, you all, we are in part 2 of chapter 3. We just finished covering the late effects and knowing that the actual ongoing problem should always be coded first, and then whatever the late effects is, such as a fracture or a burn, an old fracture or an old burn, should be coded secondary. Okay, so make sure you have it clear on the way it's sequenced. You know that it's one thing to get the codes correct, but also you need to make sure that they are also sequenced correctly as well, or it's wrong. Okay? So make sure you all know that. Now, you all, when a patient is coming in for rehab and they are admitted for rehab, that is going to be that code V57.1 for physical therapy. If they're coming in for speech or occupational therapy, those also have their own code as well. But one important fact, these are primary diagnosis codes, which mean that they have to be listed first. So the fact is, if you have more than one therapy who's going to be seeing the patient, you have to use code V57.89 because they all can't be listed first. So V57.89 tells that multiple therapies are seeing that patient. Okay. Now also, if you remember that in order to fully identify a pressure ulcer, you have to list the site of the pressure ulcer as well as the stage. So right now in ICD-9, you have to list 2 codes. So let's say you had a decubitus ulcer of the sacrum, and you would do 703.03. Let's say that is a stage 2. That would be 707.22 is what you would code secondary. So it would take 2 codes to completely code out that scenario. All right, make sure you know that about your pressure ulcers. Then you have your syndromes. Your syndromes, you can look up under syndromes when you have a particular type of syndrome. You all make sure you know your chapter specific guidelines, and you know your guidelines are found in the front of your ICD-9 manual. You have 17 chapters, and you have chapter specific guidelines found in the front of your ICD-9 book. So make sure, guys, that you know where that's located. Now, make sure you go through when it comes to HIV and infectious disease. Now, I can't stress this enough. You know that HIV is going to be our first listed diagnosis, and it's trumped by pregnancy and any thing traumatic. Okay? So make sure you go through and you reread all of this information pertaining to HIV and how you go through and you code this out. Okay? All right. And that's your MRSA and your septicemia, your neoplasms. Remember, you all, your neoplasms, make sure, first of all, make sure you go over your septicemia and your SIRS, sepsis, severe sepsis, and septic shock. That's going to give you important information as well, and your MRSA conditions as well. But in chapter 2, we have your neoplasms. Now, if you have a neoplasm is a new growth. You can have a primary, benign, malignant, in situ, unspecified, and uncertain behavior. These are the tabs that are found in your neoplasm table. If you have a neoplasm benign, that means that is non-cancerous. But if you have a cancer and they've never been diagnosed with cancer before, that is a primary neoplasm. When you have a neoplasm or malignancy that has moved from one spot to another spot, that is a metastatic cancer, and that means that is a secondary cancer. Now, if you have a carcinoma in situ, that means that the cancer is encapsulated in one site and does not move and invade other healthy tissue. Then you have an uncertain behavior. We don't know. Sometimes this acts like cancer and sometimes it doesn't. Then unspecified or uncertain, that means that you have labs pending. So the pending of what the labs say, you'll know whether or not it's cancer. Okay. Now, another thing important, if you have a patient who is coming in for radiation therapy or immunotherapy or radiation, chemo, or immunotherapy, these are all first listed diagnosis codes, and they have to be listed first, with the cancer being coded secondary. So the radiology, the radiography that you're going to do for the cancer, or the chemotherapy has to be coded first for the cancer. So make sure you go back and you read this, you all. It's very important. The endocrine system, of course, you know these are our codes where most line are diabetes codes. Diabetes, if the doctor just says diabetes and nothing else, does not say anything about a manifestation, our code that we are going to list is going to be 250.00. But the first time that diabetes get a manifestation, such as in diabetic neuropathy, our code becomes 250.60. The neuropathy portion of that code is going to be 357.2. And then if they are insulin dependent, we have to code V58.67 in that order to make sure that we're telling the accurate story when it comes to coding. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, Ms. Cunningham, when do we use a secondary type of diabetes? Now, take this scenario into play. Let's say you have some kind of pancreatitis, and you know you have your insulin is created in your pancreas. So pancreatitis is going to affect the insulin production in your body. So therefore, you are going to get a form of diabetes, but it's not a true form of diabetes, because if I treat that pancreatitis with antibiotics and that inflammation goes away, that diabetes is going to go away. So that is when we use code 249 for that diabetes, and that's because it is not a true form. It's going to go away as you treat the problem that is causing it. All right, the next thing we have are the diseases of the blood and blood forming organs. These are where your anemias are held, your mental disorders, your diseases of the nervous system are found in chapter 6. Make sure you go back and read over this, you all. Diseases of the circulatory system. This is where our hypertension is. And you know that the hypertension that our doctors usually say is 401.9. Basic hypertension, that's all they say is hypertension. If we need to code benign or malignant, the doctor has to state as such that it's malignant or that it's benign. Otherwise, we code the unspecified hypertension. Now, remember with the hypertensive chronic kidney disease, you all, that this is a presumed cause and effect relationship per your coding guidelines in the front of your book. That this is a presumed cause and effect relationship, and anytime these two are present together, that hypertension becomes hypertensive, chronic kidney disease. So we no longer code 401.9, we code 403.9, and the fifth digit corresponds to whatever stage of chronic kidney disease the patient has. So if you have a chronic kidney disease of stage 5, your fifth digit of your hypertension is going to correlate to either 0 or 1 according to whatever stage the CKD is in. Okay? That's only for hypertension and chronic kidney disease. Everything else the doctor has to link. Remember that. If you have a elevated blood pressure that is not hypertension, if he just says elevated blood pressure, that's what it is. You should be coding code 796.2, not 401.9. let's see, diseases of the respiratory system, you have your COPD 496. And then if you have an exacerbation, an acute exacerbation of COPD, you have 491.21. Okay. The next thing that we have are diseases of the digestive system. Make sure you know about the different digestive system diseases that you can have. Diseases of the genitourinary system. We just talked about your CKD as well as all the way up to your end-stage renal disease. Pregnancy complications. All right, y'all. Go to that OB section. Make sure you go back and you know this stuff right here. Make a note. I mean, it's lengthy, but make a note in that OB section, because these are some things that you need to know and you are going to see on that test. So make sure you go back and make note of that. Let's see. Those are the OB section. Then we have diseases of the skin and subcutaneous tissue. Of course, we just talked about the pressure ulcers a short period of time ago. Make sure you code not only the site, but you also code the stage of that pressure ulcer. Then you have the diseases of the musculoskeletal and connective tissue. Okay. All right. We are going to stop here, you all, and we're going to pick up with part 3 in just a minute.